I believe it is my sacred duty and responsibility to show you just how deep the spiritual war is right now. And it is also, I believe, my responsibility to stimulate your consciousness and to fortify your self-awareness so that you know of the real, genuine threats that are around us and that are around you specifically. And I'm speaking of the spiritual war against Jesus and his chosen. And in this video, we're about to expose a lot of different stuff. And I have a feeling that whoever watches this video is going to need to be very diligent in their perceptions following the watching of this video, because a lot of the things that I'm going to be saying are going to expose the devil and his shadow realm. And, you know, if you want to think that this is like hocus pocus, that's fine. You can turn off the video right now. But if you are genuinely interested and there's something about this that strikes a chord in you, then I encourage you to watch this. And I'm going to be as practical and as reasonable as possible in doing this thing. And the reason for that is because I do not want to cause any sense of anxiousness or alarm or anything of the sort. But we also need to learn that those that are not going to be supporting the truth will be judged. And those that are not held accountable for the wrongdoings that they are committing, they will also be judged, but not by us, but by the Most High Yah. So, first, right out of the gate, we're up to bat, and the first curveball that I'm going to throw you is the question of, if life after death is eternal, then why would God need to have us in a simulation? If this is all a simulation, what is the point of being in the simulation? Especially if life is going to be eternal when we go to heaven. Like, what exactly is that all about? Well, in this universe, there is genuine good and genuine evil. I am starting to get to the point to where I am only of the consideration and belief that, and the reason that if you are committing any kind of act or saying any kind of word, you're doing one of two things. You are supporting evil or you are supporting good. Now, why is there good and evil in the universe to begin with? Why did God give that opportunity for evil to blossom? Because it's difficult to say, and it's difficult to put into words exactly why, apart from understanding that we are here to grow, and we are here as individual creations of God. And because of the fact that you're chosen by Jesus, by God, you're also going to be a target for the devil. This is very, very important to understand. And this is something I didn't understand until the last year and a half to 2 years. Was that I never really understood why, if I was doing all the right things, why am I not having the results that I feel as though I deserve? Why do I keep having to come across these obstacles at every single corner? What am I doing wrong there's no possible way that given the fact that I'm doing all of this work, there's no possible way that I'm the problem at this point. And I was very upset, and I was very, I guess you could say I was in an argument with God, and I was definitely wrestling with God, which is what it means to be an Israelite to begin with. That is the translation. The children of Israel are those that wrestle with God. And so I was wrestling with God on this, and I was like, I've been putting in so much work my whole life to the point that I shouldn't even be here. And yet I still feel as though I am encountering demons at every single corner. What is going on? What is happening? And so you're going to experience these kinds of things and these kinds of motions on the spiritual path, especially when you are getting really close to true freedom. That's what I learned. And the reason for that is because you're never really done fighting the devil. You're never really done fighting the shadow demons. Now, what are shadow demons? What really does it mean to be the devil? Like, what exactly is the devil? This is a very good question. You might have had the experiences where you hear weird noises at night. You see weird shadows on the wall. You can almost feel your bed shaking for some reason. And you know it's not an earthquake, but you can feel as though something's trying to stir you. If you're having any of these kinds of things, and you know that you're not like a schizophrenic or anything like that, then you're probably encountering the shadow realm. And you're probably doing something that you're not supposed to be doing. For example, the first time that I saw a demon, I was about 10 years old. And I had not told anybody about it for a long time because I didn't know whether or not anybody would believe me. But I was 10 years old, and at the time, there was only about a year or so after my great-grandmother passed away. And when I was in my room alone and I was just reading a book, and I started to think about life. I remember sitting on my bed and I was looking at the posters on my wall. And I had a bunch of like martial arts and dragon posters. I really like dragons. And I was looking at the posters, and I was just thinking to myself, like, if dragons aren't real, then what makes the poster real? And I thought about this, and I started thinking about life. Like I was 10 years old, and I was thinking about these things, and I was just like, I don't understand how something can be real in front of me and yet not really real. That didn't make sense. And when I started asking these questions, it was almost as if I was opening the door to my spiritual reality for the first time. And when I opened that door to the spiritual reality, to this day, I still have a hard time distinguishing what exactly I saw, because it wasn't a full-fledged, like I couldn't see the demon's face. It was almost hooded, but it wasn't quite hooded, and I could see that it was just like lurking over me, watching me, and it was almost like it was the curses of my great-grandmother that were left over to me. But I didn't understand it at the time. when I was reading that book and I was looking at those posters, and then I looked at the corner, and it was nighttime, and I was getting ready for bed, and I looked over into the corner, and then that's where the shadow just emerged. And at first, I saw it, and it's hard to even to talk about this because I haven't talked about it for so long, but it was like the first time that I really saw the entity of curse. And that's really what it felt like as well. And it really did feel like it was attached to my great-grandmother, and now it was trying to attach itself to me. And that was the first time I encountered a demon. And it scared the living crap out of me. But at the same time, I wasn't sure if I imagined it or not. And so I just made sure to just keep listening to the music that I listened to at night. I used to listen to this, they called it Qui-Gong music, which is, I think that's how you pronounce it. Basically, it's like Chinese instrumental music or something like that. And it's just very soothing. And so I made sure to listen to that every single night after that. And I couldn't really go to bed without listening to it for nearly a year. And it was just because those sounds made it easier for me to not acknowledge this occurrence. Well, what you will find as you gain more and more experience on the spiritual path, the more I developed my ability to see the light, the more I also developed my ability to see the darkness. And it was about 2 years ago when I first started to see for real that not only are some people just zombies out there, because I have seen people like just, walking. It's like the Night of the Living Dead for sure. And they're just walking zombies. But not only that, it was, I didn't see people as human all the time. And that really freaked me out. Because it was as if I was seeing the demons that possessed them and not the person themselves. And so, anytime I'm talking with people and I ask them a yes or no question or a direct question, I like asking open questions, but if I'm specifically asking a closed yes or no question, usually I'm trying to tell whether, like, what this person's really up to and what is this person really wanting from me. And so if they answer the direct question with a confusion-based answer, then I know immediately to cut this person off. I will give them a chance. Yes, I will give them another chance, but I will cut them off if they persist in their agency of confusion. Because in 2 Timothy 1:7 it says, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So those that have a sound mind and those that are of the Spirit are going to be okay with being direct. And they're going to also understand that if you don't be direct in your conversations with people sometimes, the trust is not going to be there. And if you don't have trust, then you don't really have a relationship. And to be honest, I don't really trust anyone. And I'm not saying you shouldn't trust anyone or you should trust anyone or like what. You need to just trust yourself first. I genuinely think that you cannot trust anyone before you trust yourself. And so that's exactly what I did, because I was around authors of confusion so much, and narcissists and gaslighters and liars and manipulators for so long. It was like I didn't know which way was even up anymore. And there were times on my spiritual journey within the last 4.5, 5 years where I encountered and fought demons in my sleep. And the demons that I fought, some I won, some I lost. But there was one dream in particular that I had about 2.5, 3 years ago, where I saw humanity crawling on the ground in the dark. And they were all crawling, and it was like the darkness was trying to hold them back from getting toward this light. Because all of the human beings that were actually human beings were trying to claw their way to the light. But the darkness, it was like this sludge. It was like this, that gooey slime. It was just like a gooey slime of darkness was like holding on to the human beings. And only the people that knew how to speak in such a way that would get rid of the sludge and the spiritual slime of the darkness could enter toward the light. Because a lot of people would get so close to the light, but then the sludge would just boom, like a rubber band, just pull them back. And like I said, that dream was about 2.5, 3 years ago. And I could see that the darkness was not just, and the devil is not just it's a form, but it's a formlessness. And it's the same thing with God. God is also a formlessness of a kind. Else, I don't think Jesus would have been able to rise after the 3 days. How could you? There is some kind of formlessness about life itself as well. And there's a kind of aptitude for generalities within life that can be applied to the light and the dark. But make no mistake, the light is more powerful, but the darkness is so much easier. Because in order to get into the light, you really have to work. But why do you even have to, but here's the thing that the question that I had initially, even when I was 10 years old, and at the question that I posed at the beginning of this video, it's that, well, if there's eternal life in the light, then what exactly is even the need for the dark? And why do we have to even fight to be in between the light and the dark anyway? What's the point? And if I really do make the wrong choices and get back, pulled back toward the dark, and if I didn't even mean to make the wrong choices, so you're telling me I can get punished? This is where a lot of people with God have a lot of hard times. It's because, God seems very cruel in a way. It's you're telling me that even if I didn't mean to choose the wrong choice and I go that path, that I'm still going to suffer the consequences? And I didn't even mean to? I was actually trying to do the right thing? Because I heard at the coffee shop this morning, I was getting some work done, and I was outside and enjoying the birds and the sunlight and the trees around. And it was just a very beautiful morning. A little bit cool as well. And there's this really disgusting couple that came in. And for some reason, I just started to feel drained, even with them in my vicinity. And I was like, okay, yep, these are demonic spirits. These are demonic entities. And if you're an empath, you're going to know if you are just feeling drained in the presence of certain people that they are doing some fucked up shit. Excuse my French, but that's exactly what's going on. They are doing some crazy stuff that you do not want to be a part of. And they immediately started talking about God, which I thought was actually kind of interesting, given the fact that I was feeling this way around them. So I stayed a minute, because at that point I was just ready to like leave. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to just move somewhere else. But they started talking about God, and they started to ask like why people like to serve God. It's like, well, can you imagine like you're serving a master and you feel like that's freedom? It's like, yeah. And what master do you serve? You think you serve yourself? Because these were the kinds of people that you look at them and, you know, they've got tattoos everywhere. They've got red and green hair. The girl's got red hair. The guy's got green hair. You know, they're not really, like, they're fairly pale. This is another thing I've noticed about demons in people. It's that, like, the vampire archetype is for real. Like, there are true bloodsuckers that are life force drainers. And they are, I swear, they're always, like, they're so pale sometimes. And you can tell by someone's lack of glow as well, whether or not they're an emotional vampire or not. And you can also tell if somebody's got a little bit something extra, you know, because those people that got a little bit something extra, you can just feel like a powerful presence around them. But I digress a little bit. So they were talking about God, and they were talking about how being a servant to God sounds like the opposite of freedom. And meanwhile, like, these people look like they've just been dragged out of the alley in San Francisco, and and they're off to drink their coffee and talk shit on people that are following God, which is all right. Like, it's not the first time I've seen it. So, and I used to be somebody that didn't think that like following God was something that was free as well. And the reason that I thought that was because I didn't view God's laws to be adequate for my sense of egoic pride and nihilism. And so in that moment that I heard these things, I started to have a little bit of compassion for these people. But I had compassion for the people that I could see they could be, and not for what they are. Because what they are is demonically possessed. And so many people around us all the time, I would say genuinely, maybe 50 to 70% of the people walking the earth right now are demonically possessed. And I'm being conservative with that number. The other 1/3 of people are at least in a healthy dynamic in their relation. They may not be super spiritual, but they are very, like, they do have healthy attachments, and they do like value family, and they do value, well-being and all of those other good things. They may not be super spiritual, right? But they do value life, and they do have a reverence for it. And they can see through a lot of the bullshit. And I started also thinking about just earlier after that experience and that encounter at the coffee shop. I started to think about the last few years, specifically since the pandemic. And I thought about how chosen ones actually gain by losing. And now why do I correlate the pandemic with the chosen ones being someone and people that gain by losing? Well, a lot of the times throughout the pandemic, what I learned is that we do not work when we're sick. We do not know how to work in our relationships. We do not know how to explore. We do not know how to adventure. We do not know how to be pioneers of new frames of mind when we're completely isolated and complacent. The fact of the matter is that we need people. Unfortunately, so many people are just staying slung back by the darkness, like in my dream. They're just attached to this sludge. And the reason for it is because they have not even wanted to reason through and think through what exactly it is that they're doing. People are so unwilling to be put under pressure these days. It's absolutely astounding that people also would choose quantity over quality, when the fact of the matter is that I would rather choose quality over quantity. And that's exactly what choosing God is about. When you choose to follow God and not anything else, you're choosing quality. Why? Because you're giving yourself dignity and honor. You're giving yourself the opportunity to rise to something higher. You're giving yourself the opportunity to follow someone that is worthy to follow. Do you really think that these people at the coffee shop know that they're following Satan? That's what Satan does. He's really good at telling you, like, oh yeah, just do this for you. Oh, it's all for you. You're the one in complete control. Meanwhile, you're being manipulated into a life of degeneracy and a life of severe psychological illness and complete confusion and chaos. And you call that freedom? No. Freedom is about responsibility. Freedom is about understanding the impact of truth. Freedom is about understanding the impact of being on Team Healthy and having healthy relationships. And there's so many times in my life where you have a good thing going with someone. It could be either with a girl or with a potential guy, like that's just like you're trying to build like a business with or build something with. And then with the girl, you're trying to get a relationship started. And then they do something to just completely fuck it up. And you just start shaking your head with one eyebrow raised and just like, you idiot. You what? Why did you do that? But then you realize that this, they don't follow God. They don't follow virtue. They don't understand self-awareness. They may claim to understand self-awareness. They may claim to have self-awareness. But when it comes down to it, actions really do matter more than words. And so you'll be able to tell by who's who on this spiritual war and this spiritual path, by what actions they do. If they say they're going to do something and they don't do it, well, how could you trust that person? But if you say that you're going to do something and you do it, all right, at least I can trust your actions. I may not trust you just yet, but I trust your actions. There's a lot more that I could say on this topic, but I think I'm going to cut it right there for today. I hope this message was informative and insightful and as practical as we could possibly make it, given the content and the context of the situation. And with that being said, peace be with you. Till next time.